So Solicide released about 3 weeks ago now, and most of us can agree that it wasn't exactly the product that we were hoping for. There's numerous reasons for this. If you guys want a bit of a deep dive into the history of Solicide and its development, I'll leave a video in the description down below. This project faced a lot of development troubles, and unfortunately it meant that we ended up with the final product we have now. Don't get me wrong though, as I've mentioned, there are aspects of Solicide that are actually good. Its strongest point here is the gameplay, even though there are a few problems and issues in that department. Most of the time though, it does offer a pretty solid hack and slash trip. Because there weren't any review copies that were sent out prior to launch, it sort of meant that it's taken a while for the overall score of the game from various outlets to actually surface. Right now the game is sitting at a 62 over on Metacritic, and at this point most outlets have had enough time to actually formulate their opinions and get their reviews out. And you'll find that most outlets are giving it anywhere from a 6 to a 7, which in my opinion I feel like that is the score that the game honestly does deserve. I would put it, yeah, somewhere between a 6.5 to a 7. 77% of reviews though are sitting in the mixed category. So people have been pretty vocal about the issues that the game has. A couple of days after launch, Ultizero mentioned over on Twitter that they are taking in all feedback given towards the game. And in the past 3-week span since launch, Ultizero have released 6 update patches that fix a bunch of problems, but also optimize and further enhance the gameplay experience. Now that right there is a lot of updates applied in such a short amount of time. I don't think I've ever experienced a game's launch with this many updates within only a matter of a few weeks. So honestly, I really admired the work that Ultizero are putting in, and it's very, very clear that they are actually listening. The first major update, 0.5, introduced a bunch of new things. Adjusted attack mechanics and improved responsiveness for greatsword skills. Kaiser's role now has improved iframes. NPC animations had been enhanced with smoother visuals. Puzzles and minigames had been slightly adjusted to make them a little bit easier. Cutscenes and credits can now be skipped at any given time. Whenever you receive a new weapon, you now get 3 skill points. You'll now receive even more gold when playing the game on hard or nightmare. There was a bunch of tweaks made to the boss fights throughout the game on all 3 difficulties. Skill special effects and boss fight special effects have been optimized for further clarity, but also improved so that there is a bit more impact. 0.6 introduced a new control scheme along with optimized mechanics for the greatsword and scythe in specific combos, and even more enhanced animations for select NPCs. 0.7 finally enhanced the hit sound effects for both weapons and monsters. It adjusted the trigger distance for dialogue interactions. It once again enhanced more NPC animations and optimized models. They even improved Kaiser's landing animation to make it easier to predict where you're going to land. And the most recent 0.8 update introduced adjusted damage values for the pole blade, optimized trigger frequency of Arena's in-game quotes, balancing out the Drogo boss fight damage stats, and extending the timing window of the greatsword's burst pursuit. And amongst all of these optimizations and enhancements, Ultizero have also been stamping out a lot of bugs and issues with the game, along with improving performance, especially looking at the PC version. That's a lot of stuff that's been improved for the game in only a matter of weeks. So I spent a few hours playing the game on this new build because I was really curious to see how combat now felt with these new optimizations. The combat system is good for the most part, but there is this lack of impact and punchiness, almost weightiness, to the combat system. And one of the reasons why this is actually because of the combat sound effects. So when I saw that Ultizero improved the hit sound effects for both weapons and monsters, that absolutely confirmed to me that yes, they are paying attention to what people are saying about the game. And I am able to say that it is noticeable that sense of impact has improved because of the improved sound effects, but also mixing in the improved VFX for both skills and boss fights. I don't think it's necessarily drastic, but it is definitely a step up compared to the way combat felt at launch.
Right here, right now!
I can't can't exactly comment on the changes made to some of the weapon mechanics here because it's not specified how these certain mechanics or what mechanics are actually altered or changed. There are definitely some damage value changes that have been applied here, but if we're talking about the raw mechanics, I didn't notice really any difference upon the few hours I played using all weapons, so not too sure what those are actually doing. Now, in almost all of the updates that have been applied so far, there is this constant mention that animations for select NPCs have been enhanced, and they even mentioned 2 optimized models. Now, I didn't do like a complete playthrough, obviously, on this new build, because that would just simply take way too much time, so I don't know, maybe my experience would be different if I went back through the entire game, but watching a few of the cutscenes jumping between stages, I didn't really notice like the animations to be massively improved. It's hard to know exactly what or whose animations are actually being changed here because it's quite vague just mentioning select NPCs. This means that only a few NPCs are receiving these improvements, I'm assuming, at a given time with each update rolling out. This is why the mention of improved animations for NPCs it keeps getting brought up in these update notes. This is an aspect of the game though that I'm not really expecting to change drastically. A lot of the animations are so stiff, and especially if we're looking at the facial animations of almost all of the characters throughout the game, because I'm assuming that motion capture wasn't used for any facial work, almost all of the time the characters just look completely void of emotion. Still, at least the devs are trying to slightly improve this aspect of the game, even though for me, from what I've experienced so far, it's not really that noticeable. The improved landing animation is nice. There is actually quite a lot of platforming throughout Lost Solicide, so I decided to go back to some of those platforming segments to see how the improved landing animation actually now feels with jumping from like one platform to another, and it's good, it's better. The frequency of Arena's in-game quotes, his talking, has also been toned down. Now, I don't want to say like he's never going to speak again because that's not true. He still does mention like quite a few quotes per combat situation, and honestly, I just wish that they introduced an option within the options menu to disable Arena's talking, because he's still going to repeat the same quote 3 times per combat encounter, but it is definitely less frequent. Again though, this is another one of those changes where it's very clear the devs are listening, because this was one of the biggest complaints that I personally had and a lot of people had about the game. From my time with the game, spending a few hours focusing in on the key changes that have been made here, I can say that this is definitely an improved experience. It is not drastic by any means, but the game certainly does feel better to play. And I imagine that Ultizero are still going to continue to release updates as the months come. Here's the thing though, if you're expecting a massive overhaul to take place from a future update, then unfortunately I feel like you're going to be disappointed. Things like the really jank animations, the incredibly bad voice acting, the game's very weak story, and amongst some other issues that are just so far beyond being fixed via a simple hotfix. These are the type of things that would require a complete start from the ground again and work your way up. But if you did enjoy the game at launch, looking at its most important core foundation, the combat system and gameplay, then I think that aspect is going to continue to improve and continue to feel better. Just keep in mind that Ultizero don't necessarily have to go in and apply all of these gameplay optimizations and enhancements. Sure, looking at bug fixes and performance updates, these are more or less required as a consumer is spending money on this product if it is broken in some aspects or kind of just straight up doesn't work how they would expect it to, then we're looking at a bit of an issue. They pretty much have to apply fixes like that, but straight up improving gameplay systems isn't really required. This is just more so them listening to the feedback that has been given and them wanting to refine their product, and for that I actually applaud them, because over the past few weeks it really seems as if they've just been like heads down focused on trying to improve the experience that's on offer here. I do not think the game is magically going to get a bump up to like an 8 out of 10 or anything, but it is at least nice to know that when you eventually come back to Lost Solicide, or for those who are currently waiting for the price to drop, as I do think anyone that is a fan of character action hack and slash games should play Lost Solicide at some point once it's cheaper, then at least the experience is going to be better for those people. However guys, that's all for today. Just thought I'd keep you in the Lost Solicide loop. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to slippity slap that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. A big thank you to my wonderful patrons and YouTube members. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.